Welcome to the Coffee with Karen podcast, a weekly chat show discussing everything from holistic health to current affairs from a mental, physical and spiritual perspective. Get your weekly cup of positivity with a sprinkling of woo-woo.
And we are live. So, welcome to a Coffee with Karen, a cup of positivity with just a sprinkling of woo-woo. So each week, my guests will discuss a variety of topics, all really around holistic health in some way, either from a mental, a physical, or a spiritual perspective, or to be honest, the majority are really a combination of all three. So I'm your host, Karen Roberts. I suppose my thing is I help people find their mojo. Whether that's relating to business, whether it's relating to fitness or weight loss. Basically, I'm just here to help you get back on track. So today's topic is going to be, now I know we say it's a cup of positivity. It is the positive, but we're going to try and help people dealing with pet bereavement. Because it does seem to be a subject that's not really talked about. My guest here, Victoria, is going to give you lots of tools and tips. And if you have been struggling, then yes, get in touch. So Victoria, can you share with the listeners a little bit about who you are, what you do, and share a little bit of your story, please?
Yes, of course I can. So thank you. Thank you to everyone for welcoming me to the show. So yes, I run my own company, Ametrine Holistics Limited, and I'm a bereavement therapist for pets and their owners. So it's duality in that respect for lots of different reasons, which we will sort of, I'll go into in a little while. So my background is really that I spent around 8 years in the veterinary referral industry. And unfortunately, we were made redundant from there. But in a sense, it was, in some respects, the best thing that ever happened, because it put me at a crossroads of what do I want to do with my life? Where do I want to go with it? And I chose to follow my heart, and I chose to actually train in some human therapies. And you'll hear me use that distinction quite a bit, human and animals or human and pets. And that's just because I work with both. So forgive me for that, please, everyone. So I trained in lots of human therapy, so hypnotherapy, CBT, which is really good for reframing your mindset, your thoughts. I mean, Karen, you might even, heard of that, and I'm sure people out there will have heard of certain ones. Lots of abbreviations, so NLP, neuro-linguistic programming, emotional freedom technique, EFT, which is tapping, TFT, which is thought field therapy that came before emotional freedom technique, so that's also tapping. Parts therapy, EMDR, so lots of different things that I work with. Energy healing, so I'm a trained energy healer and teacher. And basically what happened was, when I was working in the human therapy side of things and I was helping human clients, I just felt like something was a bit missing in my business. And I remember watching, it was well, the universe kind of guides you to these things, doesn't it? But I was watching this beautiful video on YouTube of somebody doing healing with a tiger, and I burst into tears. And I was like, okay, that was quite a random reaction to something that's actually really lovely. So at the time, anybody that's looking to do inner child work, so I know we're slightly digressing from pet bereavement here, but actually it all kind of, your inner child is often the one that's very bereft.
Yes.
Actually, when our pets pass away. And there's a great book called Recovery of the Inner Child by Lucia Capaccioni. And she is very much about power of the other hand. So you basically write with your non-dominant hand as your inner child, and your dominant hand is the nurturing parent or the protective parent, or whatever side you're working with. And I remember doing that exercise after I'd watched that video, because I'd been doing some work anyway. So I thought, right, okay, let's use it. And she was really angry, my inner child, basically saying, you're not working with animals anymore. I want to work with animals. And she was really cross. And I was like, okay, right. I mean, obviously, at points like that, sometimes you do think you're a little bit crazy. But it made total sense, because I've been around animals since I've been I know people can't see it, but since I was very small, doing lots of different things. I've handled wild kittens at the age of 7. I've stroked bumblebees. I've had the privilege of going behind the scenes at London Zoo and stroking elephants and all manner of things. In terms of different experiences. Not and So I've already had that pattern of working with animals, and so really from that point, I was like, right, okay, well, that actually is true. I loved working at the vets and helping the way that I could. I'm not a trained vet or a vet nurse, but I was told that I had the best client empathy in a 600 staffed company. So of course that makes you think and go, okay, what's going on then? So as I say, I'd already trained in human therapies. And so I started looking at, right, what do we need to do to be working back with animals in a way that would be right for me holistically? So I kind of went from there training in canine flow, which is working with a dog's emotions to transform their behavior. And then I'd already done the Rahana healing, which you can work with animals on. And then we got to the even kind of crazier side that I've always wanted to do, but never thought it was possible, which was kind of being the Dr. Dolittle, where that was to do with the animal communication. And that came about when I went to the Big Cat Sanctuary. So anybody that is in Kent, the Big Cat Sanctuary is in Smarden, and I went to an open day. And when I was there at that open day with hundreds of people there, I had my first communication with a tiger there, but I didn't initiate it. It just happened. I was basically looking at the tiger, and I felt a wave of the emotion, a very strong wave of emotion come over me whilst I was looking. And I remember looking at him. His name was Pan. I believe he's up in spirit himself actually now, but his name was Pan. And I remember looking at him, and he stared straight at me. And I said, "Oh my goodness, you're feeling this." And he kept staring at me, and I was like, "Oh my goodness, you can understand that I can feel this." And for that split second, it was just us two. There was no one there. There was no music playing. There was no other people. It was just me and him. So he started me off on my animal communication journey. And I'm not going to go too much into that because otherwise I feel like we're not going to get through what we'd like to get through. So
it's a sprinkling of woo woo. We're not going.
We won't go too far into that. Yes,
but if anybody's interested in that side of things, get in touch. So
absolutely, yes.
So what is a pet bereavement therapist then?
Yeah. So a pet bereavement therapist is, for me anyway, as I say, it's duality. So I have chosen to work not just with pets, but also with owners. So this is in 2 ways mainly. So when a pet passes away, I will communicate with the pet in spirit and bring through whatever is needed at that moment in time for that individual and that relationship between the pet and the owner who's grieving here. So what I do is, I give people a form that they can fill in if they've got any questions that they want to ask their pet. And so I will address those if they come up, and I will speak to the pet, say, well, this is how mum or dad is feeling, what do you have to say about that? What would you like to say about that? So I will never wing it. I will always give what the pet tells me. If there are no questions, because sometimes that's the case, then I will just communicate with the pet, and I'll basically ask them more about their personality, things they liked, they disliked. They might give me favourite places they like to go. Often they'll show me little quirks that they used to have that, again, allows an owner to understand, yeah, that's definitely my Fluffy, that's definitely my Bob, or whoever it is. Also things like happy memories. And the 2 things that I tend to make sure I definitely bring in is, has your mum and dad experienced you from spirit? And when I say experience, that's normally seen, heard, or felt. And also, do they have a message for their owner? Because to me, that's quite powerful. Because the reason I got into communicating with pets in spirit is because when my own cat passed away in 2016, I was so bereft, and I'm sure people out there can completely relate to this. If I could have done it, I would have blown all 4 walls out of my house that I lived in, because the grief was so intense in such a space that I just needed freedom. And I go to a spiritualist church, and the one thing that I wanted them to bring through was not a loved one at that point in time. It was her. It was for somebody to say to me, she's sitting next to you, or she's curled up on your lap, or she's, meandering around your feet doing the figure eight. This is her colour, and she's telling you she's okay. Because I'd seen other mediums do it. So I thought, well, this is possible then, you can do this. And because of obviously my association with going through that experience, I mean, I'd had her since I could put her in the palm of my hand. My brother hand reared her as part of his vet nurse course. So, she literally was the size of our hand, and we bottle fed her and everything. So I had a very strong bond with her. So it was really from that experience that made me kind of go, I want to do this. I want to communicate with pets in spirit because, I know what it feels like to be so bereft and just wanting someone to say they're okay, or they're still around you. And so what I do with, I just wanted to bring that in just so people can understand sort of where I'm coming from with that. So what I'm doing with the communication, as I say, is really to bring people what I feel I would have liked to have had when Phoebe passed away, which is my cat, which is things like the reassurance, the comfort, the knowing that actually, death is not final. We and I know, I appreciate that some people out there will not believe this, will be on a different journey in that respect, and that's absolutely fine. Take what you wish from this, and discard what doesn't feel right to you. But for me, it's a physical death because the physical vehicle we're in, our body, has chosen to kind of give up. But our soul lives on. And so for me, that was really important to show that there is life after death, that actually their soul does live on, and that often they are very much still around you, even after they've passed away. Even when Phoebe had been put to sleep and I'd had a vet in my home saying, okay, she's clinically dead in a nice form, because her heartbeat has stopped. I remember looking in her eyes and going, yeah, I get you, but she's not gone. And they sort of looked at me just like, what? I was like, no, her heartbeat's definitely not there. But I said, in her eyes, her soul is still in her body. I can see it. She's still there. There's something that is not quite got, she's not ready, or she thinks I'm not ready, or whatever, but she's still there. And basically I ended up having to go out probably a few hours afterwards. I didn't really want to, but I had to. And when I came back, I remember looking into her eyes and going, she's gone. And she needed me to go. So I've had all these different experiences that again have led me to that. And then obviously doing these communications, that's a big part of it, because the question I get asked quite often is, I just want to know that they're okay. The same as I had, really. I just want to know they're okay. Sometimes people get curious. They would like to know, what they're up to, who they might be with, where they might be. And that's, that can be different each time. Sometimes pets have shared with me other pets that the owner has no idea about, that they're with. Sometimes they will understand the pets that they're with. So, oh yes, I remember we had a family dog and things like that, or we had a horse, So it's all, very interesting in that way as to like where they accumulate afterwards. But also from that, as I say, the messages that can come through for owners sometimes it can just be, look, I want you to be happy. I've had dogs say, you've got one life, live it. And in some ways you kind of go, we have in this lifetime, but if you believe in past lives and future lives, then we've also got other lifetimes as well. But but often they will say things like that. For instance, if the owner is beating themselves up, for instance, or punishing themselves in some way, which again is quite common. A lot of guilt often comes up with passings. But sometimes they blow my mind with the messages they come out with, because they'll be so philosophical and soulful and deep that, again, if you're ever thinking it's me making it up, it'd be like, I couldn't make that up if I tried, sort of thing. So some of it comes through in that way, but again, the messages that come through are individual to that owner, if you like. So I help in that way with the communication, but being trained obviously in the human side, the human therapies, what I then also look at is what has been written on the form, what's come up in the communication, how the owner has responded to that information, what else might have been shared. And we also then look at working with the therapies that I'm trained in to actually help them release emotions. So sometimes, like I said, people feel guilty. Did I do enough for them? Should I have done this? Should I have done that? We're always, I mean, you'll know, as well, like even in our
Yeah.
daily lives, we're shoulding all over ourselves, aren't
Yeah.
we? You know, but that often comes up, all the shoulds, all the what ifs. What if I'd done this? What if I'd done this differently? So you can look at that. You can look at the guilt aspect. Obviously, grief, is probably the most prominent emotion, but it's not always the only emotion. So I
Mm.
find often that the way pets pass will be very indicative of a loss that someone's had in their life that is unresolved in some aspect.
Oh.
So what will often happen is then we look at that. And sometimes it's not even, it may not even be a loss. Sometimes it's another aspect where, you know, say in the pandemic, people haven't been able to be with their pets because some vet surgeries have allowed you in and some haven't.
Right.
Sometimes people, if they weren't allowed in, suddenly they might be feeling that they've abandoned their pet in their last moments. And often that can go back to something that has happened to them, for instance, where they felt abandoned in childhood.
Mm-hmm.
So again, I work in that way of feeling into that. I work with my spirit guides, and sometimes they will give me a massive push from the back as if to say, yep, you need to say these words now, because they know that there is something there for an owner to heal. So they will, so in a way, it's like it's all of us working together, the pet,
Yeah.
the owner, and spirit, guide, source, universe, whatever you want to call it, to help us all, because we're all connected, we're all one. It's all a collective consciousness. So by a pet and an owner working together in that way, it heals the collective consciousness. But it's so amazing in the sense of working on these levels where you're working with the owner with emotional release, and you're working with the pet with the communication. You're also then working to rebuild a connection between the beloved pet and their owner, but in a more of a spiritual kind of energetic way. I
Mm-hmm.
suppose a feeling sense, actually, a lot of the time. Whereas we have to grieve the physical loss. We can't touch them, we can't cuddle them, we can't, do those things. Although I will come back to that actually in a second. But what you're doing is you are creating a different connection. You're creating, like, different synapses connecting together in the sense of people understanding that they're not crazy. If they have been crying and they have heard something that's very distinct, like, when Phoebe passed away, she rubbed on my bedside lamp, and there was nothing near my bedside lamp. I wasn't near my bedside lamp. Nothing fell on it. Nothing was next to it. And I just knew that that was her sign of saying, I'm okay. So they do often send you signs from spirit to say, I'm okay. And with pets, I don't find with pets that it's normally like a robin or a feather or something like that, like you get with normal loved ones that have passed. Or human loved ones that pass, not normal. But they will send you things like that, that's very distinct. I knew that she did that. I heard it time and time again. Sometimes you'll hear dogs bark, or you'll hear their claws like running across the decking, or the wooden floors you've got, those kind of things, very distinct things.
Very
People
personal.
Exactly, absolutely. And often it's their way of saying, I'm here. I'm here. And so part of the work that I do, that's the other section in the communication. That's why I say to them, has mum or dad experienced you from spirit? And I say experience because they could have felt them, they could have seen them, or they could have heard them generally. So I want them to, I like them to tell me that, because if they say to me, yeah, mum saw me in the kitchen the other day, she was ironing, and you say that, and I was like, what? Yeah, I was actually, I was. And do you know, I did feel like somebody's watching me, and I did feel like I saw them, like a split second, a black shadow, and I'm like, well, that was them. That was them saying it. And so there's that side of it as well, that I want people to understand that, when they're seeing that, they're not crazy. That is your pets showing you. I've tripped over Phoebe several times in my house when I've had absolutely no cats in the house at all. And I'm like, hang on, why am I stepping over a cat that's not here? And I'm like, oh, oh, thieves, how cool. Please don't do that in the middle of the hallway, though. That's,
Dangerous.
well, it is. Sometimes I've nearly hit a wall or, stuff like that. So, but then I mean, how many, people that have got cats or dogs know that, they've
Yeah.
often done that in daily life, haven't they? They step in front of you and suddenly your tea goes everywhere. So they do, they show you in a myriad of ways that we're still here. We're looking after you. We know that you're grieving us. And so there's that side of it that I do. But then the other side of things is also when an owner passes away. So when an owner passes away and you've got a pet here that's grieving, I will communicate with the pets here because akin to us, when pets are grieving, they can show, similar symptoms. They might not want to eat. They might not want to go
Yeah.
out. They might not be their normal selves. They might not want to play, so on and so on. They might, feel a bit angry. Often they feel a bit confused because they don't know what's gone on. So, excuse me. So again, what I will do is communicate with the pet that's living and that's grieving. And I will use mediumship as well to then bring the loved one in and reconnect the pet and that loved one in spirit in an energetic way. So I will ask the pet to just, whenever you need that person near you, just call them in, just think of them and ask them to draw close to you and reconnect them in that way. And often again you will have a pet kind of going, oh, I didn't know I could do that, or I'm feeling really peaceful, I feel really relieved. Often I will pass a message on as well from that loved one to that pet. But also then you've got the double whammy of, when there is grief in an animal, there is normally grief in an owner or an individual that's linked to them somehow. So I will then also use the opportunity to bring a message through for the owner as well from that loved one. And I'm getting goosebumps as somebody's drawn close. What can then often happen is they might say, oh, I really love the photo that you've put of me up on the mantelpiece, or things like that, So again, for me, that's what I love about it, is because my numerology is a spiritual messenger, and that when I went to church first, I said, well, what's that? And they were like, it's a medium. And I'm like, okay, all right, whatever. I didn't know I'd be able to do this. I hadn't got a clue that I'd be able to do this. I hadn't got a clue that I'd be able to chat with animals or animals that have passed. But this is why I like doing this, is because it's so fulfilling to know that you have helped somebody in that way, because I didn't have it when Phoebe passed. And again, when loved ones have passed and I wasn't in this kind of way of life, I didn't have it. It has made such a difference to me. It's given me different views when somebody does pass away and I go to a funeral, for instance. I have a very different view of it than before I got into the spiritual way of life, because and I, again, I've been to family funerals where the person that has passed has shown me that they are around and they're watching over everyone at their own funeral, which I know to some people they were like, well, that's a bit morbid, but it's not. They're watching over their loved ones. So this work in both those ways can allow people on a physical level, mental level, emotional level, spiritual and an energetic level to heal in lots of different ways. And in a way, as I say, the fact that they will often help you, the way they go will often help you heal an unresolved loss, to me is just incredible. It just shows the scope and the expansion of them being in our lives, if you like. That they too are part of this collective consciousness that we have. So that's
Wow. So
what I do.
so you say you didn't have this ability when your cat passed. So what happened? How did you realize that this was happening?
So I mean, I didn't have, I suppose I didn't have the ability. I wasn't conscious that I had the ability. But I was already at that point into things like angels. I was already going to spiritual church. So I guess I'd already started to get into this way of life. I knew that mediumship, there was you were able to, get evidence of connection with loved ones. So I definitely already had those beliefs there. So the way I got into it, as I say, was really just that motivational push of, gosh, the way I felt when Phoebe passed, I don't really ever want anyone to have to go through that to the intensity that I did. And if I can in some way be somebody that can allow them to understand that there is life after death, that your pets don't leave you, straight away. Their soul lives on, they're close to you, they're showing you that you're there. Then that's what I'd like to do. So it was a journey from there, really, that I was doing mediumship anyway. I am a medium, in the human form, if you like.
Yeah.
And I was doing that for quite a while. And then I remember saying to a mentor for animal communication, Joanne Yo, I really want to do this. I really want to communicate with pets in spirit. That's where, my heart really wants to go, because I know what it felt like
Right.
to not have that. And so really from there, I just did some case studies. So I worked with people just to see, what happened if I did. So I do most of it distantly. So I just had a photo sent to me, and then I just wrote down everything that I was getting. And then obviously, had the session with the owner and said, right, and we went through everything. And of course, then you're getting the evidence from like, okay, yep, this really is happening. I can do this. And so it kind of went from there, really, that, once I'd got that evidence that, yeah,
Yes.
I can do this, the same as, you can do mediumship and connection with loved ones and life after death. Then I was like, right, then let's do this. And then I suppose, really the rest of it has come about from actually working, with people that have had their pets pass away, and, clients where an owner has passed away, and just seeing the transformation. Because sometimes it can be things, as I say, like reassurance and comfort and forgiveness. Often, owners have to learn to forgive themselves,
Yeah.
for berating themselves, for punishing themselves, and often that comes in. And again, that takes quite a bit sometimes for people to do that. But you will, sometimes you will get people that go, I don't want to go on. If my pet isn't here, I die. That's it. I don't want to be here anymore. So to be able to transform that, to be able to guide someone to get to the point where actually they do want to move forwards with their life, they are then considering perhaps, taking on another pet, or just literally, taking some steps in their own life, baby steps or not, it doesn't matter. But that they're actually wanting to be here, and they're actually wanting to stay here and live their life out, to me is just an honor in itself. That, and at the end of the day, when I'm working, I'm not doing this, an owner is doing that. And I can guide someone to release their emotions, but they're the ones doing this. So I think sometimes, again, it's just showing people, you're stronger than you realize, and you're much more resilient than you realize. And actually, you're the one doing this work. I can facilitate, I can guide, and I can show you, where to tap, or how to take you through the process to get the emotions out, but you're doing this. So that's sort of, that's really been the journey to doing this. But as I say, actually, working with clients has been really the point where I went, actually, this is where my heart lies, because it's helping not just the owner, but it's helping the pet, and vice versa.
Yeah.
And I think that's amazing. I mean, I already have very much I say theory because that's sort of how it works in the scientific world, isn't it? But I support very much that pets are mirrors anyway. And the kind of metaphysical side of health, and you'll probably understand that with your fitness background,
Hmm.
that often our body tells us messages through our ailments, through our symptoms, sort of thing. So I guess, having had all of that there, as I say, to be able to help somebody in all of those different ways, and build that reconnection, and again, as I say, just prove there is life after death, that we have a soul and that soul lives on. And yeah, that's what I love about it.
It's amazing. I mean, it is absolutely fascinating, and yeah, you're doing a huge service, because people are so attached to their pets. It is like, it's
Yeah,
like having a child. So,
yeah,
and you're always going to outlive your pet, right? Pretty much. So it's something that children, are going to benefit from learning how to deal
yeah,
with it. So
yeah.
you're covering all. Uh, all parts
angles.
really, sort of combining everything that you've done from the treating the humans versus the pets. So
Yes.
it's a nice, sounds like a nice combination.
Yeah.
However, does it, because some people could see it as, oh, it's a bit of a depressing job, isn't it? But how do you do you take on board, do you have to protect yourself whilst trying to help them? Because it's, you're dealing with something that is obviously naturally sad, and helping them get through this process. Does it not sort of rub off on you at all?
I mean, I'd be lying if I said no, it doesn't sometimes, because, you know, as you say, it is very emotional. And, when you're doing communications, even doing communications where you're not even working with pets in spirit, sometimes there'll be things that a pet says that, really touch your heart, and you kind of go, whoo, oh, kind
Mm,
of thing. But with these, yes, absolutely, that, especially when it's a message for the owner, that often will get me. But I mean, even when I worked in vet referrals, I was always the one that, as part of the administration team, when a pet had to be put to sleep, we had to obviously go in and do all the kind of the paperwork side with the clients. And I always said, look, I'm going to cry. It's as simple as that. I'm going to cry. And sometimes people didn't, sometimes the team, some of the team didn't always understand that. They didn't feel it was professional. Whereas my view was always, actually, it shows that I care, and that's me. I wear my heart on my sleeve. And, my ethos was, if the team can't cope with that, then you need to get somebody else to help the client, because the
yeah.
client never complained.
No.
They actually
Well,
did
and you
say, no, it's
need, and
fine.
that's what I mean. It's like,
Yeah,
well, you will need to release as
yeah,
well,
yeah. I mean,
release those emotions, because you're dealing with a highly emotive
yeah,
subject here.
yeah.
The you know,
But I do protect my energy, so I do protect my energy. And I do find, yes, sometimes that I will, I like, if it's quite intense sometimes and it comes up with a pet, for instance, or an owner, then yeah, if an owner's crying, then often I will, cry, but not probably to the same level as they're feeling, if that makes sense.
yeah, sure,
But definitely you do. And I don't mind that. I don't really have a problem with that. As I say, I do protect my energy, so I'm not taking on everyone's grief, because otherwise,
yeah,
if I was, doing that all day, every day, I mean, by the end of the week, I would just be an absolute mess. So,
yes,
so I do
yeah,
have to do that too, so that I can hold space for them. But I think also, because I know that the soul lives on, and because I know that I'm reconnecting, and on that level, and that I'm helping them release emotions, I also think that that actually does help, having that perspective that I know that they're up there. I know that the soul is around them. I know that, as I say, there is that life after death. That has taken quite a lot of, um, I suppose, my previous beliefs away, of, that's it. Once they pass away, they pass away. So I think that's probably also an element of it. So yeah, I can definitely show that I care, and I can definitely sometimes take the grief on. But likewise, I also will then obviously look after that afterwards, and be able to release the grief myself anyway. So um,
right, yeah.
yeah,
So yeah, you've at least you've got your tools in the toolbox, right? So
exactly. Yeah. But I'm
at
not
least,
sitting there kind of going, so,
ah,
because otherwise, I mean, yeah, that would be horrific for a
be
client to have to
incredibly,
work
I just got
through,
incredibly
But,
draining. Yeah, yeah. You need
but
to go and recharge. So do you have any specific, have you got any particular stories that you'd like to share with people about
oh
any?
gosh, there's so many. So one that I had first of all, and I am going to mention him because, bless him, he doesn't get mentioned very much, because he was my first, if you like, is I used to, when I worked in the vets, I used to look after my boss's cats when they went back to Australia, and they had three cats called Shadow, Emma, and Baby. And at this moment in time, Baby had already passed, Shadow had recently passed, so Emma was the little bubba that was left. And they they needed to go back to Australia, and she was at the practice, and we were all looking after her. Um, And I used to go in every morning and spend some time with them before I then went to do my job. And I remember going in and I was with Emma and I was kneeling down and I was just talking to her and saying, "It's okay, darling, it's all right," and we were sort of having, she was sort of in her bed, and I was just talking to her. And I remember as I was talking to her, feeling this figure of 8 next to me of shadow. He was a black Burmese, bless him. He used to, when they did go away, when he was alive, he used to actually sit and go around my shoulders, and I used to sing to
Oh,
him. So again, me and him had quite a strong bond. And he was doing figure of 8 right next to my leg, my thigh. And I was just like, "Oh my goodness, darling, your brother's here." And as I said that, she looked exactly where I could feel him doing it.
oh
And
wow.
I just looked at her and was like, "Oh
Oh,
my goodness, you can feel it, you can see him, you know he's here." And she just looked at me and I was like, "Oh my goodness, darling, this is so exciting." So, but weirdly, again, I mean, I wasn't even into this way of life at that point, but I wasn't scared by it. I just thought it was really exciting. So that was a really lovely one because, that meant a lot to me that he was here, not for me, for her, that
yeah.
he was looking after, and that was her big brother. So that was a beautiful moment. Um, what else? One client that I worked with, I mean, I've communicated with her dog in spirit several times. He passed away in a road traffic accident, unfortunately. And again, he was a teacher for mum. I won't go into it any more than that, but he was definitely a teacher as to some of the things that we've talked about today. And when I was doing a communication, he had pancreatitis when he was here on the earth plane. So I thought, okay, what would be a good way to show mum that you're around? So, anyone that has a pet with pancreatitis will understand this, but his farts absolutely used to stink
Oh,
because he had pancreatitis. So I said to him, okay, because he'd given it to me. So I'd smelled it. I was like, that's lovely. Thank you. Um, and so I actually said to him in my head, so I was doing the communication in my head, not out loud. And I said to him, "Can you give that to mum, please? Can you show mum that smell? Or, well, not show the smell, but you know what I mean. Can
yeah,
you
yeah.
give
Share it.
give her that? That's it, thank you." And I said, because actually that is 100% you. Like she'll understand that. I'm the complete opposite side of the room, so, she can't blame it on me, sort of thing. So I did. I said, "Right, can you do that for me? Let me know when you've done it." Um, and he did, and he said, "Yeah, sorted," kind of thing. And I said to her, "What's going on for you at the moment? Is there anything that you've noticed that's different?" She said, "Oh, I can," and she did. She could smell it. So that
Wow.
was, and he was. I mean, he was amazing. He showed us so much. He showed us past lives that he'd had with this owner, which made complete sense to her. Um, he was also the first pet that when I'd been doing canine flow training, he was one of my case studies, and I used to pick up a few words from him because I wasn't trained in animal communication at the time. But the owner very kindly said, "Look, take a photo home and see what you get." I was like, "Okay," So we took it home, put it on the dining room table, didn't think anything more of it. Went past the photo one day. This word came in my head, crouch with a capital C. And I asked the owner, and she was like, "No, it doesn't mean anything." I was like, "It's not a surname. It's not the name of somewhere, a road you've lived. No, no. Okay, all right. Maybe it was just me then. But when there's something
Mm,
and you're going, that's very odd though. Why would I have that?"
yeah.
And I
Very
remember going,
specific.
well, exactly. So, and I remember going to development circle one night, and it popped back in. And I shared it in the circle and said, "Can anyone take this?" And a lady there said, "Yes, I can. It's the name of my dad's farm." And I said, "Did your dad have a dog?" "Yes." "Was it this breed?" "Yes." "Was he this colour?" "Yes." "Did he have any problems with his hindquarters?" "Yes." All of this was indicative of the doggy that I'd been working with. And I said, "Okay, interestingly," I said, "I think the soul of your dad's dog could be in the soul of is the soul that's in one of my client's dogs." And I said, "Are you getting goosebumps?" And she said, "Yes." Well, goosebumps is normally truth. So I said, "Well, obviously, it's not something we can prove exactly."
No.
But I said, "Okay, right." That taught me something. So when I went back to mum, if you like, of the dog, and shared that with her, she got goosebumps. And whilst I was telling her what had happened, the dog was actually staring straight at us, both of us. And I was like, oh my goodness, you know that I'm telling this to your mum. You know that this is what you've given us. So he has been incredible. And, he's been on some journeys with me, actually. He's said that before. He's come through to people and said, I'm with you. Um, and even Panda. So Panda was a foster that I had from the Cinnamon Trust, who are an amazing charity. Look them up, everybody, if you don't know about them. Um, and I had him for 8 weeks in total. But originally, I was only supposed to have him for around 2 to 3 weeks. And I remember getting the email from the trust saying, we wondered if you would look after this 20-year-old for us. And instantly, everything in me said, oh my goodness, I'm going to have to put him to sleep. Now, I knew that wasn't like an anxiety thing. It was just something in me just instantly was like, oh no. But of course, I dismissed it. I was like, no, it's probably just because he's 20 and that's an amazing age for a cat to get to, like incredible. And he was incredible. He taught me a lot during his stay. Now he had a lot of ailments, as you can understand, being 20. He had a lot going on for him, and eventually his time came. And again, pet owners will probably understand this, that often they will start to show you. So he had done two strange behaviours. So the entire time he'd been here, he'd had the opportunity to come into the bedroom. I'd said to him, it's absolutely fine. If you want to come in and sleep with me, I have no problem with that. But he chose not to. He would always stay in the living room. And 2 days before he passed, he chose to come into the bedroom and actually hop up onto the bed, which took a lot for him. I'd got little step stools for him. And he slept back to back with me. And then on the last night before he passed, he slept right by my pillow. Now, apologies if that does upset anyone. I just see it as incredible. I don't see it as upsetting. I just see it as so loving that it was like his way of saying, I've got to go, sort of thing. And when we took him into the vets, I couldn't be with him. I had been told that I could be, and I wasn't allowed to be. And that did create some PTSD.
Yes.
And his legacy. So again, just shows you how mind blowing it can get with the way they pass. It was twofold, really. So his legacy was that I spoke to the vets, having obviously worked in the industry anyway. I spoke to them and said, look, this created PTSD for me, or triggered it. I already had it, but triggered it. And they said, yeah, actually, we understand that a few more people have been through that. And I said, right, can you find a way to do this? Because there's no point, it's not fair triggering this within people, triggering stress, triggering PTSD, if there's a way around it. And effectively, their group decided that they could have a particular surgery as part of the franchise where people could go if they wanted to be with their pets. So his legacy, I'm getting goosebumps now, his legacy was that got changed. Not just for me, but because I wanted that to happen, but also for everyone else out there who couldn't be with their pet, during this situation. And that was a big deal for me, that he, because of how he passed and how that was experienced.
Things.
It did. And he was amazing. I saw him wandering through the hallway for the first few times he passed. But also with his passing, the only part of my own cat, Phoebe's passing or death, that I'd not been able to heal, if you like, was actually having to go through the experience of putting another pet to sleep. And so again, I realized that was also part of him being with me, is for me to heal that. And again, from that, he taught me to actually, and again, this is tips for people that are going through this, he taught me to honor how I was feeling. Because often in the society that we're in, and I think also pets are not always seen the same as loved ones in terms of when they pass. Often, even in the vet industry, we've had people say, oh, somebody said to me, it's just a cat, just a dog. And I remember saying to them, no, it isn't just a cat or just a dog. They're extended family. And sometimes they're even more important to you than your own family, depending on the dynamics. So I could completely relate to that. And he taught me to just kind of honor those feelings, stop working, feel into what your body needs. What does your body need? My body needed rest. It needed water because I've been crying a lot. It needed me to go out in nature, because often we're going into the trauma response when they pass away, which is
Mhm.
often either fight, where we get angry or we want to hit things or
Mhm.
throw things around, or flight, where we just want to. Mine was like, I just want to get out. I need to be out.
Yeah.
And again, he taught me to do that, to listen to that in my body. And I actually was drawn to go and see the horses that don't live too far from me, and I ended up actually communicating with them and just saying, I know that you can feel anger from me, I know you can feel grief from me, I promise you it's not going to come your way. I just need to talk to you, if that's okay. And even with that, I remember there being two horses, and one of them went up to the other horse and sort of kind of nibbled at his bottom, as if to say, "Oh, you do it. I can't. I'm not doing this one today." And he came up and he just stood right in front of me, like looking right at me the entire time. He listened to me and he was just with me. And I just said to him, "Thank you so much for being there for me. I really needed that." And I remember on my walk home, actually saying, right, what does my inner child need? Because I knew that that was her that was feeling all these emotions. And she said, I need crafting, I need to craft, I need to read, and I need to learn. And I said to her, okay, well, we can do that. We can be creative, and we can definitely, we might not be able to do it for as long as you might want me to do, but I can definitely do a certain amount. So I would always say to people, listen to what not just your body needs on a physical level, and
Absolutely.
honouring it, and often I know they say, sit with it for like half an hour, and they go, right, I've given it time, I've given it opportunity, now I'm going to crack on. And I get that to a point, and sometimes we have to do that if we've got kids and loads of stuff going on that
Absolutely.
we've got to manage. You've got to do that. I mean, I chose to take time off in my business because I knew I needed to honour that grief, and that I couldn't be there for my clients in the way that I'd want to if I
Yeah.
just tried to push through it.
Yeah.
um, so I would definitely say to people, listen to that grief, because it isn't that dissimilar to a loved one passing, and in fact it might remind you of a loved one passing. So you're not
Yes.
just feeling the grief of the pet passing, you're actually feeling the unresolved grief, or unprocessed grief of that person passing away, that perhaps at that time you either didn't have the resources to cope with it, or you couldn't cope with it, or
Didn't know how to.
yeah, exactly, didn't know how, people wouldn't let you. There's so much that can kind of come from it. So it's never a judgment thing. It's just okay, yeah, this is here, and drinking water. And I would say that the biggest thing is talking to people who are safe to talk to, where you're safe to be completely you. And luckily there are a lot of pet bereavement helplines out there. So you've got Cats Protection, Pause to Listen. You've got the Blue Cross Pet Bereavement Helpline. Um, they were the ones that I spoke to when Phoebe passed, and I pretty much phoned them every day. And I knew that I was repeating the same thing to them, and they knew that. And I said, but
And
you know,
that's okay. That's okay.
exactly, absolutely, it just needed to come out so that I could then kind of carry on with the rest of my day as best one can. But I think just honouring that, and as I say, being, I felt safe to share that. Whereas sometimes people go, "Oh, not this again,"
Yeah.
and they're the kind of people you don't want to be around in that sense at that moment in time, because you need the people there that, as I say, that you feel safe to share with, even if it's the same thing you're saying, because that's just your way of processing it and kind of getting it out, if you like, and coping with it.
Right.
Um, you
And
know,
everybody's going to be different in the way they deal with it. And yeah, that
absolutely.
bit of advice is fantastic. It's to allow it, and it's
Exactly.
okay. It's okay to grieve. It's
Yeah,
almost like we're expected to get up and move
yeah,
on with everything.
yeah, it's that kind of like, "Right, come on, that's happened, get up,"
Yeah,
as you
come
say,
on.
no, "Move on, next," and it's
Yeah,
like, no,
yeah.
that's not
And
how grief works,
that's not healthy. It's not healthy, is
it's
it?
not,
Yeah.
and I think honouring all the different emotions that can come up, looking up like the grief wheel, for instance, it can be like this tangled ball of wool where you get some grief, then you get a layer of anger, then you get more grief, then you get a bit of guilt, then you get, it's just like there can be so many different emotions that can come up. So it can be, lots of people describe it as not even a roller coaster, because the roller coaster will be going all over the place, and then you come
Yes.
back on yourself, and
Yeah.
and just understand that often there are layers. You might clear a layer of grief and maybe anger at them going and leaving you, and again, that could be indicative of the loved one having left and feeling angry that you were on your own, or things like that. So you
Right.
might clear that layer, and then it's like boom, a couple of days
Something
later,
else.
exactly, and next layer pops up. So again, I think it's us as those that are grieving, beginning to understand that, and being compassionate with ourselves and kind. Because I think we beat ourselves up, don't we? We punish ourselves, like, oh, for goodness sake, just go
Yes.
and do the washing
Come
up, just
on.
go and get stuff done, look at the house. It's rather than going,
Yeah.
do you know what? It doesn't matter if your house looks like a bomb site for the minute, as long as you're clean, as long as and just sort of gently encouraging yourself, just have a little bit of food. I know you're not hungry. Let's just have an apple. Or
Yeah.
let's just have something just to keep us ticking. It's all of those kind of things, isn't it? Being gentle, being compassionate with
Being
ourselves.
There you go. You
Right?
just said it there. Being kind, a little bit kinder to yourself.
Yeah.
Really, give yourself a break.
Yeah.
So, what do you think? There are any lessons that? What lessons do you think um, can come from a pet passing, if there are any?
Um, I think, I mean, some of them we've already touched on, I think, in a way, is learning to be more compassionate and kind to ourselves.
Hmm.
I think, I could say obviously the life after death is a lesson in itself, that actually our souls do live on. I mean, there's an amazing book, I haven't got it to hand, but called The Soul's Gift by Robert Schwartz, which is all about soul planning that we do before we actually incarnate onto the earth. And this includes with our pets as well. So I think sometimes with, I mean, the kind of lessons I learned, for instance, with Phoebe passing, when she passed, I actually started to learn that often we can share energy. So I learned that every time she had a UTI, I had one. And I started to kind of go, huh, okay,
Mm.
that's interesting. And then I was like, did she take some of that from me then? And that led me on that path, and I've seen it more than 2, 3, 4, 5 times where somebody has shared something, and I've been like, "Oh, okay, I think the pet has taken that." And to anybody that thinks that might be the case, please don't ever feel guilty, because sometimes that is the role of your pets. That's their choice. If I've spoken to a pet and they said, "No, my role is to take on their energy," you know there's
Wow.
nothing we can do about it, because it's a soul level. We're, as you rightly said earlier, we're very attached. They are not in that sense. I mean, obviously they are very attached to us as when they're here, but on a soul level there's a detachment level of, they think more about the grander scheme of things, if you like, of humanity. And
We're
uh
Buddhists.
well
The animals have a Buddhist outlook.
Well, I had one lady that came to me actually as a human client. I will share this just because it sort of ties in with what we're saying, is um, that she said to me, "Oh, I just want to ask you something." She said, "I think that my dog took an illness from somebody." And I said, "Okay, do you want to share with me why you feel that way?" And she said, "Well, my dog was a therapy dog, and he used to go and see a little girl. And she said, I think he took it from her, what she had." And I said, "Well, what did he pass away from?" She said, "Stomach cancer." And I said, "What did the little girl have?" She had stomach cancer. Now, again, I don't know whether you are, but I'm getting goosebumps.
Mm.
And I actually said to her, I said, "Well, think of it from an expanded view of this." I said, "We don't know what that little girl was here to do in the world."
Mm.
I said, "If she was here to go on and make an amazing difference and, become the next senator or the president or, eco warrior or, whatever it was, could have been something where she changed a particular industry because of the way she perceived things and stuff, and made a massive difference, in the world." I said, "In that scheme of things, he, on a soul level, will have been taking that from her so she could continue that journey."
Right.
Now, this lady said to me, "I know, but I didn't want him to do that." And I said, "I know that. And I'd be the same as you. I wouldn't want them to do it." I said, "But that's their choice, that's their
Choice.
soul contract. That's their choice between the two of their souls, that's what they want to do." So I think sometimes
Wow.
it's a lesson. It can be a lesson of detachment, because often we are very attached. And so one of my lessons, apart from what I've just shared of the metaphysical side of life, was also that I learned that, grief is often where, it is love with no place to go. And the one person that it needed to go towards was then me and my inner child, because, often pets are, as you said earlier, like our children.
Mm.
And and we often do that, but we've all got an inner child, and often that inner child gets put aside when we get married, when we have children, when we've got busy lives. So they don't get to play, they don't get to have fun, they don't get to be inspired like they used to, or use their imagination and, create, and all the things that inner children do, to be that magical creative child. And that was one thing I learned, was that's what I need to do, is I need to nurture my inner child. I need to love her as much as I loved my cat, and
Mm.
as much as I loved Phoebe and all the other cats that I love, and definitely I can see the differences in that as I've gone down the line. But sometimes it can be lessons of, I suppose, again, if when we um around the kind of the perfectionism, isn't it, sometimes of, life isn't perfect, none of us are perfect, us being more compassionate in that we can only do the best that we can with the resources that we have. And that would be the same for
That's
the
it.
vet. The vet have got all their knowledge, they can tell you by, looking at that pet or doing the tests, or you explaining about the quality of life, that it may be the best thing to do that.
Mhm.
And again, sometimes it is us learning that sense of detachment at that point, of like us having to let go, and what's coming up for us. What does that relate to? Because sometimes that pet, as I say, is extended family, is like our soulmate. And again, sometimes there's real deep learnings from it. But I think often it teaches us, as I say, various different things depending on the individual cases, but I've shared
Yeah.
a few there. But I'm sure if people sat back and thought, right, what am I meant to learn from this? What's coming up in me? What is there for me to learn? Often it's to do with
It'll
that
come up.
element of things. Yeah. So yeah, it's incredibly.
Wow. What a fascinating subject. But that isn't all the only thing you do. So um very quickly for the listeners, can you explain some of the other services that you offer, and then how people can get in touch with you?
Yes, I can indeed. So, the other thing that I have a special interest in is separation anxiety in pets. It's not just dogs. People think often that it's just dogs, but cats can suffer with it, and so can horses, and probably other pets, but they tend to be the main ones. I work with it in I suppose, a similar way than I've described here, that we work on all the different levels around this. I look at helping pets release trauma around things like abandonment. We look at what other things they might be anxious about, which can often be coming in. And often, again, they will be mirroring the separation anxiety that an owner has. So often, when you have separation anxiety in pets, there is normally an owner that has some tendencies around codependency. And again, that goes quite complex. So I'll kind of stop at that point. So I have a special interest of working with that, and helping obviously the release of trauma. And then I can work with permission with both parties, on a similar sense, because what can come up will often resonate in some respects with the owner as to things they might have been through. I'm also a healer. I do, tarot readings. I do mediumship. I do sometimes do free demos of pets in spirit mediumship as well. And that's in my group on Facebook. So if you look up my name, Victoria Smith-Gillard, you'll see my page, which is Ametrine Holistics, and also my group, which is Holistic and Spiritual Pet Owners. I'm on LinkedIn under my own name, Victoria Smith-Gillard, as well. So all of those ways that you can contact me, my email and contact numbers will be there. And yes, if anybody's got any questions, then obviously feel free to ask, or if wherever this is being shared, if it's somewhere visual that people can comment,
Yeah,
then again,
we'll have all the
they can
links
write.
below. But if they're listening to the radio, then at least they can
Exactly.
find you. So
Yes.
yeah, brilliant. Well, absolutely fascinating. Thank you so much for your time today.
Welcome.
Yeah, that is a subject. I mean, I know we're going more on the woo-woo, which this year we're definitely transitioning. It's not going to be just sprinklings anymore. We're sort of going to be moving more into the woo-woo arena. So,
Well, the
so
interesting
thank you
thing,
for your time.
I was just going to say, the very interesting thing is we think it's woo-woo, and I always used to say, "Oh, I'm crazy and I'm not normal," and all the rest of it. But when you read books like around the lost cities of Lemuria and Atlantis, things like that, it actually says that the way people and animals used to communicate was through telepathy. So in the lost cities, it's actually quite normal for us to
Well,
be
that's it.
telepathic.
We've been conditioned out of being intuitive in any way, I think.
Yeah,
We've
exactly.
been taught that we've got to do it all with our head. It's all head stuff. We've
Yeah,
got to learn
mind and
this,
heart.
remember that, and rather than actually listening to your gut. And I do think that things are changing 100%.
Yes,
What people are
absolutely.
realizing naturally. And this is why this show is, this is why this has come about. So the sprinkling of woo-woo was to try and transition people who are not in that world yet,
Yeah,
introduce them and just slowly move them over, because it
yeah,
is what it is, whether you
yes.
believe it or not. So yeah, thank you for your time, and to the rest of the listeners, I will be back next week with a coffee with Karen. Thank you for listening. Bye for now.
Welcome to the Coffee with Karen podcast, a weekly chat show discussing everything from holistic health to current affairs from a mental, physical, and spiritual perspective. Get your weekly cup of positivity with a sprinkling of woo-woo.